On August 25, 1944, General George S. Patton's Third Army had covered an astonishing 400 kilometers in just 3 weeks. His armored columns thundered through northern France, leaving German defenses in chaos. The remnants of the Wehrmacht in Western Europe were effectively shattered. Beyond the advancing American lines, little resistance remained. German units abandoned weapons and retreated eastward toward the Rhine, attempting to regroup. Field Marshal Günther von Kluge reported to Hitler that the Wehrmacht's position in France had collapsed entirely. Yet amid the apparent victory, a crucial call from Paris halted the momentum of Patton's unstoppable advance. This was not due to German opposition, nor logistical shortages. It was political necessity. Charles de Gaulle, the leader of the Free French forces, demanded the opportunity for French troops to enter and liberate Paris. For him, the symbolic and political importance of French soldiers reclaiming their capital outweighed the military logic of allowing the Americans to storm the city first. Earlier in Normandy, the Allied advance had faced immense logistical challenges. The hedgerow country, fortified positions, and entrenched German defenses made every mile hard-earned. But by August, the breakthrough achieved during Operation Cobra had opened a path for Patton's forces to push swiftly across France. By the first week of August, his Third Army was fully operational, advancing faster than any supply line could comfortably support. Fuel and ammunition lagged behind the armored spearhead, creating a logistical nightmare. The famed Red Ball Express worked tirelessly, delivering supplies 24 hours a day, yet even this incredible feat could barely keep pace with Patton's rapid progress. American tank commanders were racing ahead of maps and orders, moving up to 30 kilometers a day through gaps in the German lines. By mid-August, German commanders acknowledged they had no effective means to stop the advance. The question was no longer if Allied forces would reach Germany, but when. The speed of Patton's advance had created a paradox. While the front moved at breathtaking velocity, the supply lines struggled
to provide even basic necessities for the troops. Despite these challenges, Patton's philosophy was clear. Momentum and audacity mattered more than caution. Every day his tanks rolled forward, Germans felt panic spreading through their ranks. Soldiers abandoned positions and fled, believing the Allies would be in Berlin in short order. Morale surged among American troops. Adrenaline and confidence fueled their relentless push. Exhaustion, hunger, and mechanical failures seemed secondary to the thrill of completing a mission that had seemed impossible just weeks before. Yet even as the Third Army approached Paris, political considerations began to intervene. De Gaulle, fully aware of the potential military gains the Americans could achieve, insisted that French forces enter the city first. Eisenhower, as Supreme Allied Commander, found himself torn between the operational reality on the battlefield and the delicate political necessities that would shape post-war France. Though American forces could have taken Paris in days, the larger strategy required respecting the French desire for liberation. By August 25th, French units began entering Paris. The city, still littered with barricades and rubble from earlier resistance efforts, became a stage for both military triumph and political theater. Patton's armored columns, having driven across hundreds of kilometers in record time, were temporarily halted to allow the French army their moment of liberation. The symbolism was clear. France would reclaim its capital through its own forces, cementing legitimacy for de Gaulle's government and providing a narrative of national pride. While the world celebrated the liberation of Paris, the Third Army's pause had significant consequences. Fuel, ammunition, and other essential supplies were diverted to support the city's occupation and sustain the influx of French forces. The rapid advance that could have carried Patton's troops closer to Germany was delayed, giving the Germans critical time to regroup and reinforce their positions along the Rhine and Siegfried Line. The extraordinary speed and daring of the Third Army were slowed by the interplay of military logistics and
high-stakes politics. While Patton's armored divisions pressed forward with relentless speed, the political situation in Paris created a dramatic pause. The liberation of the French capital was not simply a military objective, it carried enormous symbolic weight. Charles de Gaulle, the leader of the Free French government, understood that a French presence in Paris would legitimize his authority and ensure that post-war France remained independent of foreign domination. For him, the optics of American or British forces taking Paris first could undermine French sovereignty, no matter how tactically advantageous it might have been. Eisenhower, fully aware of the implications, found himself in a delicate position. The operational reality on the ground dictated one course of action: let Patton's Third Army continue its rapid advance and potentially reach the German border weeks earlier. However, the political stakes dictated another: halt the advance to allow French forces to enter the city. Eisenhower had to balance military efficiency with the long-term goal of maintaining unity among the Allies and supporting French national pride. The decision he ultimately made would have far-reaching consequences. French forces, particularly the 2nd Armored Division under General Philippe Leclerc, prepared to enter Paris with precision. Streets were barricaded, German resistance had not entirely dissipated, and insurgent groups had been engaging in sporadic urban combat since August 19th. The French troops moved cautiously but decisively, reclaiming key points across the city, while the civilian population watched with anticipation. The Parisians, exhausted for 4 years of occupation, celebrated every street liberated, and the symbolic victory overshadowed the meticulous planning behind it. Patton, ever the tactician, must have been aware of the operational cost of this delay. His Third Army, fueled by adrenaline and meticulously coordinated logistics, had come within striking distance of a completely collapsed German front. The tanks that had raced across France were temporarily parked, their crews watching as another army received the glory they had earned. The Red Ball
Express drivers, who had risked everything to keep Patton's forces moving, were diverted to supply the occupying French forces in Paris, further slowing the Third Army's ability to continue its advance toward the Rhine. Meanwhile, German commanders, led by Field Marshal Walter Model, recognized the pause as a lifeline. Though their forces were in disarray, Model took advantage of the week-long halt to reorganize defensive positions, reinforce the Siegfried Line, and create a more coherent strategy to resist future Allied advances. The chaos of mid-August, which had left German units scattered and vulnerable, began to solidify into structured defense, buying time that ultimately saved thousands of German lives and delayed Allied operations. For American commanders, the tension between battlefield logic and political necessity was palpable. General Omar Bradley, commanding the First Army, understood the military efficiency of pressing forward immediately. Patton's aggressive style could have accelerated the end of hostilities in Western Europe by weeks. Yet Bradley also recognized Eisenhower's difficult position. Keeping the coalition intact and supporting France's political reintegration into the post-war order were priorities that could not be ignored. The result was a delicate compromise. American forces would provide logistical and limited combat support, but would allow French troops to claim the honor of liberating Paris. This decision illustrated the complex interplay of strategy, logistics, and diplomacy. While it momentarily frustrated the aggressive ambitions of the Third Army, it ensured a smoother political transition in France and solidified de Gaulle's position on the global stage. The pause of Patton's advance was not merely a logistical inconvenience, it was a turning point. It allowed Germany a brief window to regroup, reinforced the importance of political considerations in wartime decisions, and demonstrated the intricate balance between military objectives and diplomatic realities. The Third Army's phenomenal momentum had been curtailed not by enemy action, but by strategic necessity, a stark reminder that war is fought not only on the battlefield,
but also in the halls of power. By late August 1944, the pause in Patton's advance had tangible consequences. While Paris celebrated liberation, the American Third Army faced a growing logistical strain. Fuel, ammunition, and spare parts that had propelled Patton's forces across hundreds of kilometers were now being diverted to support the ceremonial presence of French troops in the city. The Red Ball Express, the massive supply chain that had kept tanks rolling day and night, struggled to meet dual demands, sustaining Patton's frontline units and supplying Paris for the liberation effort. The logistical slowdown created an unexpected vulnerability. German forces, initially scattered and demoralized, now had the breathing room to fortify defensive positions along the Siegfried Line, a complex network of bunkers, anti-tank obstacles, and artillery positions along Germany's western border. Field Marshal Walter Model had seized the opportunity, directing remaining German units to establish these fortified zones, while American momentum was temporarily stalled. The very pause that had preserved French political honor indirectly gave Germany precious time to organize a more formidable resistance. As September approached, the Third Army resumed its push toward the Rhine, only to encounter prepared German defenses that were far stronger than anticipated. Tank units, once moving at unprecedented speed across France, now faced minefields, entrenched infantry, and concentrated artillery fire. The rapid, audacious campaign that had characterized Patton's drive through northern France slowed to a grueling grind. Every advance required careful coordination, intense planning, and significant casualties. Units that had breezed through Normandy and beyond now fought inch by inch for every 100 meters of territory. The human cost was stark. Soldiers who had expected a swift campaign now faced the harsh reality of entrenched warfare. Casualties mounted as the Third Army assaulted fortified positions, and the efficiency of earlier maneuvers gave way to the slow, deliberate pace of siege warfare.
The very success of the August advance, remarkable for its speed and daring,
inadvertently contributed to the severity of the winter battles. What could have been a decisive conclusion in 1944 was now stretched into a bitter struggle through the final months of the war. Strategically, the pause highlighted the tension between operational objectives and political imperatives. Eisenhower's decision to prioritize French participation in Paris came at a high cost. A brief operational delay translated into months of additional combat, thousands of lives lost, and a prolonged path to Germany. Patton, ever the pragmatist and aggressor, must have recognized the trade-off but understood the political necessity. The Third Army, despite the frustration of halted momentum, remained a critical instrument in the broader Allied strategy, poised to resume its offensive when conditions allowed. The extended campaign underscored the complexity of coalition warfare. American, British, and French forces all had distinct priorities, and maintaining unity often required compromises on the battlefield. Patton's famous impatience and desire for speed clashed with the intricate web of alliances, illustrating that even the most formidable military genius is constrained by political realities. The liberation of Paris became a symbolic victory that reinforced French national pride, ensured political stability, and strengthened the legitimacy of de Gaulle's government. But it also reshaped the military timeline of the war in Western Europe. By early September, the Third Army confronted the full brunt of the Siegfried Line. Well-fortified positions forced a shift from rapid armored maneuvers to combined infantry-artillery assaults. Engineers worked tirelessly to clear mines and demolish obstacles, while medics and logisticians struggled to support units suffering the effects of exhaustion, harsh weather, and constant engagement. Every tactical decision carried enormous consequences, and commanders had to carefully balance speed, casualty minimization, and resource allocation. Ultimately, the pause to liberate Paris demonstrated that the intersection of politics and warfare can profoundly alter the trajectory of a campaign. Patton's army, once unstoppable, now faced a formidable
Enemy in prepared positions. The operational brilliance of August gave way to a slower, more methodical struggle, highlighting the cost of decisions made for symbolic and political reasons. The story of the Third Army in late 1944 illustrates that even in war, speed and audacity are subject to the demands of diplomacy, coalition politics, and the human cost of delayed operations. As September turned into October 1944, the Third Army confronted a reality far different from the heady speed of its summer advance. The pause for the liberation of Paris had given German forces the critical window they needed to reorganize and fortify positions along the Siegfried Line. What had once been an open route into Germany now became a gauntlet of bunkers, artillery, and machine gun nests. Tanks that had raced across northern France were now slowed by minefields and prepared defensive positions, and infantry units were forced into grueling assaults on heavily defended positions. The operational impact was profound. Units that had experienced minimal resistance in August were now engaged in high-intensity combat, often suffering casualties far beyond what would have been expected during the summer campaign. Supply lines, already stretched by the rapid advance, were strained to the breaking point as the Red Ball Express struggled to deliver fuel, ammunition, and medical support to units fighting in the challenging terrain along the Rhine. Commanders faced difficult decisions: push forward aggressively at the risk of high casualties, or proceed cautiously and risk losing momentum entirely. Meanwhile, the pause had also reshaped strategic priorities. Eisenhower, balancing the military and political imperatives, had allowed French forces under General Charles de Gaulle to enter Paris first. This political decision reinforced the legitimacy of the Free French government, ensuring French participation in the post-war settlement. Yet the cost in operational terms was clear. A week of delay had provided Germany with enough time to regroup, fortify, and prepare a winter campaign that would test the Allied armies more severely than any earlier engagement. By December 1944, these
delays culminated in the Battle of the Bulge, a dramatic German counteroffensive that exploited the temporary vulnerabilities created by stretched supply lines and exhausted troops. Patton, demonstrating his characteristic brilliance, was instrumental in responding to the crisis. The Third Army pivoted from its stalled advance to mount a rapid, decisive counterattack, illustrating both the resilience of Patton's command and the dangers inherent in the pause of August 1944.
The very week that allowed de Gaulle to march into Paris had indirectly contributed to the extended winter campaign, costing thousands of Allied lives and prolonging the war in Western Europe. The lessons of the campaign were clear. Military success is not measured solely by speed or bold maneuvers, but also by the interplay of logistics, politics, and timing. Patton's audacity had shattered German forces across France, but even the most brilliant general could not override the political and diplomatic realities shaping the campaign. The liberation of Paris was a symbolic triumph that secured French pride and cemented de Gaulle's leadership, but it came at a tangible cost: a delayed route into Germany, higher casualties, and a prolonged struggle that extended into the bitter winter months. Historically, August 1944 stands as both a testament to Patton's genius and a cautionary tale of coalition warfare. The Third Army's rapid advance had been unmatched, reshaping the course of the Western Front, but the interplay between military objectives and political considerations demonstrated the complexity of war. Soldiers who had raced across northern France now faced entrenched defenses, cold weather, and the human cost of decisions made far from the battlefield. The pause in Paris, though politically necessary, altered the trajectory of the final months of the European conflict, creating challenges that required ingenuity, endurance, and sacrifice to overcome. In reflection, the story of Patton's August 1944 campaign reveals the delicate balance between military ambition and political reality. The liberation of Paris, while a profound symbolic victory, slowed the momentum of the Third Army and provoked
Patton's Germany with an invaluable reprieve. The subsequent battles along the Siegfried Line, the logistical struggles, and the winter counteroffensives all stemmed from that brief pause, highlighting how a single week of political decision-making can ripple through the battlefield with consequences that last months. Patton's leadership, courage, and unrelenting drive remained undeniable, but the events of late August 1944 remind us that even the fastest, boldest advances are subject to forces beyond the battlefield. Political strategy, coalition diplomacy, and logistical realities shape the outcomes of war just as decisively as bullets and tanks. The legacy of the campaign is therefore twofold. It celebrates the audacity and skill of Patton's Third Army, while also revealing the hidden costs of decisions made to honor political necessity over operational expediency.